طيب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Last time we talked about the three categorization of different IPs based on the network part and the host part, and we said that if the host part is all zeros, that's the network address, which refers to the common address in one LAN. If the host part is all ones, this refers to the broadcast address. And by broadcast, we mean, of course, limited broadcast. Remember, the broadcast, from the data link layer point of view, we send to all hosts within one LAN by default, right? But the broadcast, from a network point of view, can span more than one LAN. Okay? So in general, when we talk about broadcast within the physical address, we send it to all the hosts within the local area network. But if we talk about broadcast from a network layer point of view, we can actually send it beyond the one local area network. So if you have one network and a router, and this router is connected to multiple routers, and this is connected to other LANs and stuff. So if a host here wants to send using a broadcast from a physical address point of view, it will remain within a LAN. But if it sends to a broadcast network address, that can actually go to a different LAN. Okay? So a broadcast address within the network layer can have a larger domain. Of course, we call it limited broadcast because you cannot broadcast a packet to the entire internet. It doesn't make sense. Okay? So you have a domain after which the packet will not be broadcast any further. So there are some routers within that domain, which is the ISP router. The ISP router will block any broadcast packet حتى يعني. Okay, so we call it limited broadcast. It's actually a broadcast that goes to all members, but within a specific domain. So in IP, it cannot be unlimited broadcast. You cannot have that, because this means that the packet will go to the entire internet, and that doesn't make sense. طيب, the range that we didn't talk about is multicast, right? So we talked about host address, talked about network address, talked about broadcast address. So what about multicast? So first of all, can multicast also span members or go to members that are not within the local area network? Can it actually go beyond one local area network? So the difference between multicast and broadcast is broadcast it goes to all. Multicast it goes to specific members, right? Can these members be outside the local area network? Yes, they can. From a network layer point of view, the network layer functionality is to move packets from one network to another. By default, it spans multiple LANs. Okay? So if you have a multicast packet, it may actually go to some members within the LAN or some members outside the LAN, in general. Okay? Type. Which means that we cannot use a network address to refer to one local area network to use it as a multicast, because this means that it spans only one local area network. So that's why there is a standard organization called YANA. YANA is a standard organization which is responsible for assigning ranges of IPs. So they said, these are the ones who said, okay, so network IP, it's a common address within a LAN, but the host part should be zeros. And if the host part is all ones, this means it's broadcast. And if it's not all zeros or it's not all ones, then it's host addresses. These are the ones who put this 10. And then they said, what about multicast? So multicast, they put a specific range of IPs. These IPs should not be used as network address or broadcast address or host address. These are multicast addresses. These are specific range, and it's actually defined as 224.0.0.0/3. Okay? So any IP address in that range refers to a multicast group. It's not one host. and it's not broadcast to all. It's actually a multicast group, which means that this multicast group may have group members, which could be part of one local area network or multiple local area networks in a specific domain. What, Hadi? So how many addresses do I have in this range? Obviously, this is not one address. This is a range. Once I put slash something, that refers to a range of IP addresses. How many addresses do I have in this range?
2 raised to 8 plus 2 raised to 8.
2 to the power 8. Okay.
Plus 2 raised to 8 plus 2 raised to 8.
Which means 2 to the power 24.
Yeah.
No, wrong.
Minus 3.
No, wrong. What does that mean? This means what? This means the first 3 bits from the left are fixed. Okay? And then all the other bits can vary. Right? All the other bits, I can put them all zeros, or all ones, or anything in between. Okay? What is the remaining number of bits? What is the number of bits in any IP address? 32, right? So the first 3 bits are fixed. How many remaining bits? 29. So if 29 bits can vary, how many? 2 to the power 29, right? So here, it's 2 to the power 29 addresses. All these addresses I can use as multicast group address. Okay? So these, any IP address in this range cannot be used as network address, cannot be used as host address, cannot be used as broadcast address. Okay? It can only be used in multicast communication. And as we will see later, there are many IP ranges that have specific functionality. And we'll talk about some of them today. That's very important. You have to be able to distinguish from the IP address range. You have to be able to distinguish what type of IP address that is. Is it a multicast address? Is it a broadcast address? Is it a host address? Is it a special address? Is it a private IP address? And we'll talk about many of these as we go along this chapter. So, having said that, this activity here talks about the categorization of IP address. So this IP address again refers to a range. So this is so the question is this a valid host address or a network address or a broadcast address? طلع بقى الآلة الحاسبة ونفضل بقى نضرب وبتاع نقعد فيها 3 ساعات. So first of all, which byte I should look at? Dale? Which byte I should actually look at? The last one. Why?
Because it will take 2 bits from the last.
لا عرفت منين ان انا I have to focus on the 4th byte from the left. How did I know that?
Because it's power 124. It's a host.
Hmm?
A host address.
It is a host address? Okay, so it's how did you know?
26. So we need
/26. /26. From this number, /26, you should focus on the 4th byte. Why? Because it's if it's from 1 to 8, I should focus on the 1st byte. Right? If it's from 9 to 16, I should focus on the 2nd byte. Okay? If it's from 17 to 24, I should focus on the 3rd byte. If it's more than 24, I should focus on the 4th byte. واضح كده؟ Okay. So that مش واضح؟ Okay. So that's the first part. So now I should focus on this 4th byte. So now in order to answer the question whether it's a host address, a valid host address, or it's a network address or a broadcast address, then I have to take this byte, divide it into host and network, right? So this is one of the numbers that I told you to memorize, okay? And you should tell me right away what is the conversion from decimal to binary, okay? Again, you should memorize this. So this number is actually 5 ones and then three zeros. When I say /26, this means that the first two bits, network, and the rest is host. Then I should focus on the host part. Is it all zeros? No, so it's not a network address. Is it all ones? No, it's not a broadcast address. So the third category is a valid host address. So this is a valid host address. That's the answer. Okay? So that's not the solution of this activity. This activity talks about, okay, so this is a valid host address in a LAN that I want you to calculate the network address for, the broadcast address, and what is the first usable host address, what is the last usable host address in this LAN. So first, you need to calculate the network address. These three refer to here the network address, the last byte in binary, which means the last octet of the network prefix in binary. And then you convert the binary to decimal, and then you put the whole address here. Same thing for broadcast, same thing for the first usable host and last usable host. Okay? Same thing here. And this table as well, you need to do the same. Is this a valid host address or network address or broadcast address? This one. This is a valid host address or network address or broadcast address? $64, $65 is what? $65 is 64 plus 1. So 64 is you have 1. So it's 0, 1, and all zeros, and the last bit is 1. Okay? So if you have the last bit is 1, the host part will not be all zeros, will not be all ones, and it will be a host address. So it's a valid host address. Again, you have to be very fast. It requires some practice. But you have to be able to do these things fast and hopefully without calculating. Okay? Okay, so you need to calculate the values in these two tables. So it will get more and more interesting. So it's not as trivial as last time. So you need to do some rigorous calculations in that case. Anyway, so again, the last octet of the network address, the last octet of the network address is, of course, 11000000. What is that number? Again, it's one of the numbers I told you to memorize. It's 192. Stop the noise. So the full address is 180.192.188.192. That's the network address. That's the full address. Okay? So what is the broadcast address? The broadcast address is to take this part, put it all ones. Okay? So the number is 255. So sorry, it's all ones, yani, which is 255. So the broadcast address is 180.192.188.255. Okay? So what is the first usable IP address? It's actually to take that part and you add 1 to it, or you put this as 1 and the rest is 0. Which means plus 1, which is now 193. What is the last one? Is to take that part and put the first one 0 and all ones. Because if you put it all ones, this is broadcast. Okay? So you put the first one 0 and all ones. Or in other words, this is minus 1. So it's 254. Okay? Again, in few seconds, I do not have to use a calculator. What is the number in binary? It's 11111110, which is 255 minus 1. Okay? And this is actually 11 and then 000001. Okay? So here, the 65, you can use a calculator.
So sometimes the broadcast is not always 255.
The broadcast is not always, no, I didn't say that. Yeah. In many cases, it's not 255, but it has to have all ones in the host part. That's the rule that applies. You have all ones in the host part, and we will have lots of examples where the broadcast address is not 255. Okay. So actually, in the next example, it will be like this. So 65 here, you can use back calculator. 65 is 64 plus 1. So it's 0, 1. This one is equivalent to 64. And then the rest is all zeros except the last bit. So that's 65. So the network address is 0100 and then all zeros. Right? Because it's slash 28. 28 معناها the last 4 bits are zeros regardless, right? So that's 64, which means that the full address is 176.254.57.64, not 65. Okay? So the broadcast address is to take, remember that, is to take the last four bits only, because this is slash 28, not slash 26. Slash 28 means that 4 bits will be network and 4 bits will be host. So if you take these 4 bits and you set it all to ones, this is broadcast. When you set it all ones, this is what, again, use بقى calculator ضيع وقتك. لا, هو actually this is, when you put it all ones, 4 ones معناه ايه؟ 15, right? So it's 15 plus 65. صح? Which is 79. Okay? So which is 0100 and then 1111. So the full address, the full broadcast address is this, and the last one is 79. So that answers your question. So 79 is actually a broadcast address if it's slash 28. So it doesn't have to be 255. So what is the first usable host address? Is to take that part, put 1, and then all zeros, which is 65, which in that case is a plus 1. And what is the last one? It's actually this minus 1, which is واضح? You need a lot of practice. You need to practice a lot. So last time it was trivial. Now it's getting more computationally intensive a little bit. But again, with some tricks and tips, you should try to be very fast without using calculator. That's a very important topic as well. This is here we talk about the private IPs and public IPs. We studied the private IPs before. We said that private IPs have been prescribed or have been standardized to mitigate the shortage of IP addresses. Private IPs, they have 2 features. First, they are significant only within a local area network, and it can never be used in public networks or outside one local area network. In fact, if you have a LAN, the local router will receive all the private IPs. So here, within that LAN, you can use private IPs, and it can be reused, right? If you have a packet with private IPs, this router will translate it. It will not block it. It will translate it to a public IP using network address translation. So network address translation is used to translate from private IP to public IP. Why? Again, to mitigate the shortage of IP. And we talked about all the limitations and violations that this NAT, in fact, introduces, the violation to the layer stack and so on. right? But within IP address version 4, we have to use private IPs, and in fact, in our houses, we all use private IPs, right? So all the IPs in our LANs at home, it starts with 192.168 or something, right? So that's the range of private IP. We'll talk about that. So anything that goes to the ISP router, so this is the gateway. So once you go to the ISP router, can we use private IP in that case? No. Private IPs are significant only within a LAN. Once you go outside the LAN, you should only use public IPs. Okay? So again, the YANA, or this organization, the standard organization for assigning addresses, they actually standardized 3 ranges of private IP addresses. Okay? One range is what we are all familiar with, which is 192.168.0.0./16. How many addresses here? 2 to the power 16. Bravo عليك. Okay? طيب, the second less common private IP address range is 10.0.0.0/8. How many IP addresses here? 24 بالضبط. The third, which is even less common, private IP is 172.16.0.0/12. Okay, which means that this 16 is actually 0001 and then 4 zeros, right? So 12 means that these 4 bits are fixed, and the other bits can vary. How many addresses do I have here in this range? 2 to the power 20, right, Rabbi. So 2 to the power 20 addresses in that case. So I can ask you a question: how many private IPs exist on the internet? So you have to calculate. You have to add all of them. You have to add the 3 categories. So these are the only categories for IP addresses, for private IP addresses. So these IP addresses should never go beyond the local area network. The router here will not block it. Remember, the router will translate it. But the ISP router will block it. Okay? So the LAN router or the gateway will translate it to public IP. But the ISP router should never receive a packet with private IP. And if it ever does, it will block it. Okay, كده? So given this, we need to given this, we need to categorize these IPs, whether it's public or private, which means it's a simple matching of these IPs, whether they are in one of these range or not. And based on that, we take whether it's a private or public. Okay? سهل.
The first one is public. Explain?
Yeah, that's public. Do you agree?
Because it's
First
not.
one is public, right? Okay, right.
Second one is also public.
It's also public because
It's
there's
not
no
in the
dot
range.
16
Yeah.
or above.
Also public.
The third one is, because the private one has 168.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's also public. So I'm trying to give you some IPs which can be confused with the private IP address. So it's all close to the ranges of private, but they are still public. So just to test the fact that you do the matching properly.
The fourth one is
Fourth
private.
one, that's obvious. 192.168, that belongs to the which range? The first range, this range, right? So write 1 here. Right, match with 1. So it's a private and match it with 1. Right here, 1. Yes, so matches with range 1. Okay. Next?
It's private.
It's private also, and it matches with range 2. Yes, the second range here. Okay. Okay. Then private, and it matches with 2 as well. Yes. Okay. So what is this one? Public?
Yeah.
What do you think? Public?
Wait, you said multicast?
Hmm?
No. Yeah.
This is what? Look back.
Look back. Okay. So it's private.
Is it private?
Yeah. Look back is private.
It's neither. That's actually correct. It's neither. Yes.
But closer to.
Again, I put it here just to confuse you. So 127.anything is a loopback address. Obviously, it doesn't match one of these ranges. So if you put it as public, I accept it. But loopback address should never go outside a host. And if it ever does, it will be blocked by the default gateway. The local router will actually block it. The local router will not translate it. Remember, there is a difference between translating from private to public, and this loopback will be blocked. It will not go outside the host. And if it ever does, the local router will block it. Okay? So it's not a private IP because it doesn't match one of these ranges. And it should not be a public IP, but we can let it go. We can consider public IP على أساس إن هي it does not match one of these ranges. So if you take it as public, it's fine. But it's actually neither. Because public IP is actually accepted by the ISP. Is this one going to be accepted by ISP? The 127? No, because it's a loopback address. Okay? So it should never go beyond a host or a LAN. Okay? So, يعني ماشي. يعني you can consider it neither. This is the right answer actually, it's neither. But if you put it as public, I can let it go. ماشي. Next.
It's private. Because it's above
This one
16.
is private?
Yeah.
Do you agree? Yes. Why?
The number is above 16.
So this byte, if it's 16, then it's private IP, clearly. Okay. 17, 18, until what?
25.
Until?
254.
31, probably. So if this byte is from 16 all the way to 31, that belongs to that private IP.
Why 31?
Because 16 is 0001, okay? And then the other 4 bits can be from zeros all the way to all ones. If you put it all ones, this means that the full number will be 0, write it down, 0, 0, 0, and then write it down. So it's 0, 0, 0. So here, it's 0, 0, 0, and then this one is for 16, right? And then if you put the other 4 bits as 4 zeros, 5 ones like this is 31. عرفت منين? It's actually 32 minus 1.
But this number cannot be 1111?
لا, you cannot, because again it's /12. So this part is fixed, right? This part has to be fixed. So the other 4 bits can be anything from all zeros to all ones. If you put it all ones, then the full number is 32. So anything 172.16.anything until 172.31.something, that matches this range. So if I give you 172.32, that does not belong to this range. 172.15, the second one, doesn't match this range. So that's it. So that one is public. ماشي? Thank you. Okay, خلاص واضح? Any questions? So these are the ranges of private IPs, which means that the local router will translate it But the ISP, if it ever received any private IP, it will block it. In fact, there is an interesting game في الماتيريال ظريف. I advise you to do it. Once you start the game, you will see a packet going to the ISP, and you should, in 3 seconds, decide whether it's public or private. If it's public, then you pass it. If it's private, you should block it. In 3 seconds, you should decide. So it actually teaches you how to be fast. So you have to do this matching quickly just by looking at the IP address in 3 seconds. Okay? So next, inshallah, we'll talk about a special range of IP addresses which are not private or public. These are special IP addresses. And by special here, we mean that even the local router will block it. We talked about one example today, which is the loopback. But there are some other special types of IP addresses which will get blocked by the local router if the local router receives them.